Hello, everyone, and welcome to this demonstration of the Scoro software. My name is Bradley Callender. I am one of the solutions engineers here at Scoro. I am based out of New York City, as my accent may give away. And my goal today is really to give you a high-level demonstration of what the Scoro software can potentially do for you. Now, today's demonstration will be focused specifically on agencies. If you're not an agency, never fear. Maybe we can still be a fit for you. But in this case, I'm just going to take my experience working with agencies and some of the pain points that I've run into and hopefully leverage those to give a clean understanding of maybe what Scoro can do for you in this particular use case. So before I jump into it, who are we and what is Scoro? If you're watching this video, you probably have some idea of what Scoro is, but we pitch ourselves as an end-to-end work management software. Some people use the term PSA tool, professional services automation tool. The real goal of the tool is really to tie time and where your costs live to your projects and money effectively, right? For many people, these are functions that live in separate places. They're tracking time one place, they're tracking their projects another place, they're tracking your budgets another place. And Scoro really centralizes all that information. So that's why we use end-to-end, all-in-one. Pick your word choice as far as what you want to call it. But in the end of the day, we do want to create efficiencies in organizations that have disparate systems. And a lot of the pain points they're running into are inefficient reporting, inaccurate data, human error, or just a lot of duplicative work, right? We run into a lot of people that are spending a ton of time trying to get reports out, trying to understand where they are in their project burn downs, et cetera. And Scoro automates a lot of that work, gives you a lot of time back, and plans to help you maximize a couple key functions, most notably resource efficiencies and making sure your utilization is maximized as possible, making sure your margins are as strong as they potentially can be, and then just having transparency, right? Those are kind of the three things that I am going to kind of pitch today, and hopefully you guys get some value out of it. So here's a quick agenda. So once again, we are focusing on kind of the agency use case. So these sort of four functions are areas that I do think are important for agencies. The first is just going to be making sure that we can maximize profitability, right? Whether it's even understanding how profitable you are on any given project, that in itself can be very valuable to some organizations that even don't have that information yet, or they aren't confident in the information that they have. The second one is going to be a resourcing function, and this is going to be really useful for anyone who works in kind of a high volume project environment where projects are turning over quickly, or you do have people working on several different projects simultaneously, which is very common in the agency use case. And I'll show you how this resourcing via the planner can be potentially helpful for you. Forecasting, this kind of comes in two forms, right? One is revenue. Forecasting revenue is super important, especially for growing firms, in order to understand, how they can project out when money will be coming in, when they need to sign up new business. Maybe they need to push things out. All of this is done through Scoro, and you can look at a really clean report on forecasting. And then the last bit is going to be just dashboards. And this is kind of summarizing it all, bringing it all together. This is by no means going to be an exhaustive demonstration of Scoro. There's a lot that you will not see today. And if you have certain functions that you are curious about, we do encourage you to reach out and have a conversation with one of our specialists and see if Scoro can potentially be a fit for you. So just so you guys understand how I spend all of my day-to-day, right? I work with potential clients like yourself, helping you understand if Scoro could be a strong fit. It's not a perfect fit for everybody. We'll be very transparent with you about that. But the agency use case is a use case that I run into all the time. And I'm just going to bring out some of the main kind of recurring pain points I see. This might not fit your framework, right? There's definitely problems that are not on this list, but just for the purposes of this kind of short demonstration, this is what I'm going to focus on. The first is that high volume of projects. So if you do have a high volume of projects and you are not using a centralized tool, or you're just using a very basic tool, you might have problems keeping track of them all. right? You may not know who's working on what when. You may not be resourcing appropriately because people don't understand across project managers how busy people are. You may not have data connected, so you really have to be exporting information and running reports all the time in order to get the information you want. So this is definitely a big problem, especially as people are trying to grow their agencies. These sort of manual processes become highly unscalable. So I run into that all the time. The second one is going to be around sort of profitability tracking. Now, I realize that not all agencies work on a fixed scope model, fixed price, fixed scope, or retainer model, but a lot do, right? And the main problem I see with these models is that people often are over-servicing their clients, right? They quote out a certain number of hours, they blow through those hours, and they don't bill their clients for them. And that's either because they didn't know they were blowing through those hours until after the fact, and they didn't feel like they had the information to bill their client for that work, or they just didn't even know that they were blowing through their hours, right? They had very inaccurate data, or they weren't confident in their data at the time, or there was a huge delay to the point where they could actually get that information. So Scoro is a very real-time software. So when you go over in certain contexts, whether it's on a task basis or a role basis or whatever, Scoro will make it very apparent that you've kind of crossed a budget and allow you to kind of make adjustments as needed. And then the last one, this is true about basically anyone who uses any sort of project management tool, right? It's always hard to forecast, and Scoro really ties that revenue and resource utilization forecast into the actual project plan. So this is something that's very unique to Scoro, but it's also a big problem point that many agencies run into, is that what happens when a project timeline gets adjusted, right? What happens when Project A was supposed to be done on the 1st of January, but it ends up being done on the 1st of February, right? How does that affect all other work? And how does that affect your resourcing? And in Scoro, they're all tied together. So any changes that are made in the project plan will update that sort of utilization number. And that'll be really helpful as far as making sure that you're very accurate with where people are, how people are spending their time, and how people are getting stuff done. So it'll lead to kind of a happier client base, happier employee base, and hopefully more accurate data so you can be a little bit more profitable. So, all right. Well, now that I've kind of gone through this framework, I'm really just going to go ahead and jump into these one by one. And let's kind of get into it. So first one is going to be maximize profitability, right? So the problem that we're running into is incomplete or inaccurate profitability reporting. Now, this, once again, is often if people are using multiple systems or they're using spreadsheets, they're not confident in the data that they have, or it takes too long to get. Maybe it takes multiple days in some cases, or it's all centralized in one person. So really, people do not have this information in the capacity that they need it. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the Scoro software. For those of you who've never seen it before, welcome. What I am looking at right now is a really centralized view of all of your projects in Scoro. In this case, it would be active projects. And this is something that, some agencies don't even have. They don't have a centralized system. They don't know what's going on in real time in one simple view. And this particular space is really just showing some kind of key data points, like how our progress is on a particular project, how we're doing against our budgets we've set up. And these are very customizable depending on what kind of information that you might want to pull out. Another iteration of this view, I'm going to pull up right here, is the ability to analyze completed projects. So this is the same information organized in a slightly different way, where we can actually see where our margins ended up on our completed projects, right? Where were we ultimately delivering the value? What were we actually able to sell all of our time numbers or all of our units of time for, right? And this can be compared against quotes or compared against plans, right? So in this case, this project, we hoped for a 40% margin. We had a 67% margin. That's great. Sometimes it might be the opposite. We might be well under our margin for specific projects. And the Scoro list view allows us to take that information, analyze it really easily, whether it's in an active project or a completed project like this. But I'm going to go ahead and click into an individual project just so you can see how much data we centralize in any one particular project view. So for the purposes of this demonstration, I did decide to use the retainer model for a project. Now, I realize that not all of you do retainers when it comes to your work. So by no means do you have to have a retainer model in order for Scoro to be functional for you. But in this case, I did want to show, because it is quite common, how we're kind of working through the budget of a particular project. So up here at the top, we've got a bar that is summarizing our budget for a particular retainer period. In this case, it's in February, from the 1st to the 29th of February. And you can see how many hours we have remaining, how many we have used, and how much that reflects as far as the dollar value of that budget. Maybe we've used a slightly more hours in a dollar amount because we've been using more or less expensive resources. In this case, it's going to be less expensive resources. And if we look at our Gantt chart down here at the bottom, we can see the tasks that we're beginning to deliver, right? In this case, we've got this initial research task, we've got a campaign scoping and campaign one, right? So we've only planned out the first couple months. We haven't even planned out further down the line, but you can see how our time has been tracked against each of these individual tasks. And if I open up our budget view, we can actually see how we're working against particular targets. So in this case, I can see that I'm sort of well under what I've planned out so far. And if I look down here, I haven't even planned out the full value of this retainer. So even with my projections, I'm actually not even yet going to hit the amount of time I need to, or the amount of time I can in this particular project. So this is sort of a tying of current project progress all flowing into future project progress. The beauty of this sort of retainer view is it allows you to navigate easily between periods. So if I go into a previous period, you can see how we did against the previous period, right? In this particular case, we ended up under our specific budget. I can break it down by the roles that we were anticipated doing. So in this case, we actually only went over in our strategy expert role, and we stayed well under in our project manager and copywriter role, despite the fact that we had overscheduled them, which basically means that they were able to do their work faster than they thought they were going to be able to. And all of these data points are coming in real time to allow you to really quickly understand where value is being created and where you're kind of falling behind on individual projects. The last thing I do like to show in this project view, as we are in this sort of all-in-one space, is that you can tie any financial objects to a particular project. Most notably, any quotes you send out, any invoices you ultimately intend to send on a specific project, or if you do work with external costs, any bills that might come in, freelancers, etc. All of this is centralized in one kind of easy to navigate space. For many agencies, and this may be you, this is often in different places, right? You may have your bills and invoices in an accounting tool. You may have your kind of project plan and Gantt chart in a basic project management tool or something you've done for a long time. And you may have your budgets and your finances in the spreadsheets or a different tool where time tracking is, right? All of these things lead to these sort of disjointed issues that we run into so often when we're discussing people who are looking at Scoro. Okay, so let me go ahead and navigate back real quick to kind of what we are hoping to see here. Incomplete or inaccurate profitability reporting, right? We showed that on the project view, and we talked about how this project view can show burn charts and budgets and timelines from a single page, which will allow you to maximize those profitability. And then in the back end, you can use the project list view to analyze where you're at compared to that targets across an entire environment. So that's sort of the main problem number one that we run into. Let's go ahead and jump into problem number two. Oh, excuse me. And that's going to be resource planning. So as I mentioned, often cases that a lot of agencies do have a high volume of projects, and resourcing is a constant struggle. This may not be you, once again. Maybe you do work on a couple large retainers and you don't have an issue with people being resourced in a lot of different places. But it is something that we do run into very often. And so I'm going to show you real quick a really clean function in Scoro called the planner. And so if I come back into my tasks here and I look at my Gantt chart, we've got a certain number of tasks that are spread out over a period of time, right? We've got 40 hours of work to do on this particular task, but we haven't actually scheduled when that time is going to happen yet. When are we actually going to deliver that work? And to do that, we can navigate to this planner function right here, which is going to look at all the users on this project. It's going to take the list of tasks that we still have to do or sign out and look at when people are busy, right? And this is in the past. Let's go ahead and look a couple days into the future here. And we can look at for next week, who is going to be, oh, excuse me, we're in January. Let's go into February. Next week, we can look at when we can take this work and go ahead and assign it out. So I might say, okay, this campaign scoping, we need Bradley to get a certain amount of that done on Tuesday of next week or by Tuesday of next week. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this and assign a certain amount of time. to Bradley in a specific period. And this is basically telling the system, Bradley, you have to work on Tuesday for 7 hours on this particular project, or at least you're scheduled to work for 7 hours on this particular project. That's how we're planning out your resources for that day. Get the work done that needs to get done. This will tie into Bradley's utilization numbers. It will tie to that burn-up chart as far as when the time is anticipated to be done. And it'll allow your project managers to have peace of mind and understand how people are spending time on different projects. And what's great about this is that this will bring in information from all projects, right? So if a project manager is coming to this planner view and they're trying to sign out Bradley, they can see across all the work that Bradley needs to do, where he's busy, where he's not busy, et cetera. So we can go ahead and push this information into the system so that people are getting that stuff done quickly. So let's go ahead and jump back real quick into this demonstration. And the problem that we're running into is a high volume of project makes it difficult for individuals to schedule out work. And this planner view allows you to see work across users, how people are spending their time, and reassign it or move it around kind of at will, effectively, and allow you to have a really constant real-time understanding of what people's capacity is. So let's go ahead and talk about the value add here. Basically, it's a day-to-day scheduler of specific work and specific tasks. And here's a little video of it. Okay, let's go to the next problem here, forecasting. So this is not just an agency problem, honestly. This is basically almost everyone that uses Scoro has this issue. Not everybody, but a good amount. And this is just looking at what's our future state, right? We know what we're at right now. Where are we going to be in a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, right? And most notably in the form of revenue and earned expected revenue, or in the form of resourcing. So there's kind of two functions I do want to show you real quick. One is going to be this revenue report. And this is in our report section in Scoro. And what this revenue report does is it takes all of the work and projects that we've got built into Scoro and we've got quoted out. And basically it predicts when that revenue is going to be earned based on who's doing the work. So across all of our projects, we can see the amount of earned revenue we're anticipating in our entire environment based on these projects. And the dotted lines takes into account kind of future state of business, right? So it's not just active projects, it's potential new projects that we can weight against probabilities. So this is really, really valuable if you're trying to see when new business maybe needs to get signed. In this case, we can see come May, we're going to be well underneath our targets, right? Maybe 60K is about where we want to be, and we are significantly beneath that come May. So we need to either sign up new business or push work back, right? And this report is very, very useful in making those changes. Now, one of the things that's constant in all of Scoro is this is all real time, right? So as your project plans update, let's just say you change the Gantt chart, that campaign one task gets moved back a couple months or back a month. This is going to update our revenue forecast as well. So this is going to be a very real-time, easy to use understanding of where we can expect earned revenue to be into the future of a specific project. Okay, the other report I wanted to show you is our utilization report. And this is, I think, our prettiest report. And basically, the goal here is to aggregate information across all our projects, across all our tasks, and show where people are over or underutilized, looking into the future or into the past. And hopefully this is pretty easy to see, but there's a percentage as far as total utilization. Red implies bad, right? And green implies good. Pretty easy to read. But in this particular case, you can see where people are targets based on the actuals of those tasks, which are once again, real-time tied to those project plans. So you do not have that delay and that inaccurate information between the two places. And this is very filterable, right? Often people are looking at billable utilization rather than total utilization. We do take into account total utilization because we have integrations with the calendar that allows us to see things like internal meetings, personal holidays, days off, etc. So ideally, we're giving you a very, very accurate view of when people are busy week to week, month to month, etc. And this report allows you to do that all in real time. So let's go ahead and hop back to our presentation real quick, right? This is the problem we're running into. These two reports really increase efficiency, right? And it really adds value. And let's go ahead and jump into the last one, which is our dashboards. So dashboards are really going to be useful for kind of centralizing information across the space. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate back to Scoro real quick. And there's a couple key dashboards that I like to show. The key idea with dashboards is that it's really just giving you a sense for how much information we have in this tool and how easily we can kind of present it to you. So in this case, I've navigated to a CEO/COO dashboard where you can see things like where the pipeline's at, total profitability, what outstanding invoices, how people are spending their time, right? All these data points are pulled from everywhere in the tool and allows it to be presented in a really easy to understand way. Once again, it's all real time. So it's the idea of me showing you this is that if you are someone who's working in disparate systems and having trouble reporting, these dashboards are going to really be a godsend and really be able to provide a lot of value to you. All right, just so you can see, there are different dashboards that you can be working with, right? So this account manager PM dashboard, it's just pulling in different information, right? People will always have different priorities when it comes to a tool like this. We have a hierarchy of, or at least a structure of the different people that can get value out of Scoro, from everything from kind of the C-suite high level to sort of project managers to the just junior people who are actually executing or doing the work. And all of these people can have their own dashboards, their own priorities as far as what kind of data they're trying to pull out of the system. Okay, so just to summarize this real quick, basically dashboards allow teams to act quickly based on real-time data. If you're going to take one thing away from this demonstration, is that the goal of Scoro is to allow that connection between time and the time entries you add into Scoro to tie into basically your actual finances and project budgets. So you can understand where your costs are, how projects are actually being executed, and allow that to tie into a future state where you're very confident in how profitable you are in projects and that your organization, your agency is doing well. And that is really what the value of the dashboards is. So that is going to be the end of my kind of brief demonstration of Scoro. Once again, this is not holistic. There's definitely other things that the tool can do depending on your specific use case. And we'd love to hear about how you guys do things uniquely, because everyone is a little unique, in the event that Scoro is maybe something that's interesting to you. But at the end of the day, just to kind of quickly summarize the solutions that we went through: proactively track projects and resources, really be accurate with utilization and revenue forecasting rather than doing a lot of guessing or, sort of estimating. This is something that's all built into the system. And the last thing, that's going to create a very centralized reporting hub and dashboard to make sure that you have all this information on your fingertips. So thank you for really taking the time today. Once again, this was a demonstration that was focused very specifically on agencies, which is just one of the kind of sectors that we work with here at Scoro. And I hope this was of value to you. If you do have any questions, please do reach out and we'd love to hear from you. And thank you for taking the time. Bye now.